Thank you so much, each one of you for part of this conversation. And I'm sure all of you are enjoying the sessions and, loving the conversations and the insights. I will try my best to make it far more engaging because this is not just a last session, but the most important because everyone from the policymakers to the regulators and the businessman, to the startups, everyone is talking about SMEs, MSMEs, and the microfinance companies. So, सबसे पहले my question to all of you is, how's the SME, MSME, and the small businesses are doing? Because we are trying to help them a lot in different manners. And we think that that is the backbone of the country. But अगर आप रियल में उनसे बात करो तो कहते हैं कि हमारी कमर टूटी हुई है. So, Ketan, let me start with you. What are the major pain points that you see with the startups, SMEs, MSMEs, and the mid-sized companies, basically?
Hello.
Yes, it's audible.
Again, you said it's the last session, so and a very interesting one. A coin has two sides, and the statement which you made also essentially has two sides. It may not be very difficult to say that it's not a bed of roses for small and mid caps to grow, but it is also equally very, very true that the growth will come from there. I think some time back I was just speaking to Amol and the rest of the guys is that the India demographics is such that yes, there will be big ones which will become bigger, but the fundamental growth with lot of pain, with lot of kamar tutna, will definitely come from an SME and MSME. And we also have to see that how the definition of SME and MSME has been evolving. Where are they coming from? Which part of the world, or which part of India they are coming from? And his topic says that, according to me, the next 15 years or next decade plus is the decade for Bharat, which will take India to a very different level. That's my thoughts.
Yeah. Certainly. Chanjalji, what are the pain points? Kahan kamar tuti hui according to you?
Yeah, good afternoon. My thought is that a lot of pain points are there. In fact, we can start from strategy. If you see particularly the small companies, they do not have a good strategy. Second, I can say that even the people, maybe sometimes they are doing with ordinary type sorts of people. Ordinary sorts of people is required, but at the same time, talent, that is the most important thing. So that is one area where this MSME or the small scale, small size of companies, they should work. And the clean books of accounts, that is one point where I think a lot of times we have seen that maybe some compliance related problems are there, or some books are not so clean, or maybe accounting is not so good. So that is one area of improvement, and that is also, of course, that is the pain point as well. So these are the few things I think. Even the capital, because if your books of accounts is clean, then the capital fund, if you want to get fund from bankers, etc., that will be much more easier. Otherwise, it may be if your books are not so clean, then it will be difficult to get those funds. So these are the few points what is coming in my mind.
No, surely, Chanchalji, thank you. And in fact, you gave me a instinct segue to ask my next question to Akshay. So I don't want to ask only pain points. मतलब कमर तो टूटी हुई है, लेकिन उसमें IODEX move अगर लगाना है, तो finance should be the first part. So I'm sure Axio must be financing that. So Akshay, are you financing the SMEs, MSMEs?
I seriously hope you're not financing the broken backs, because getting it back will have a different challenge over there. But look, I think, if you take a step back at the overall economy, and the one thing I think we keep forgetting, that India's entrepreneurial journey, if I can call it that, is relatively younger compared to most nations in the world. But we want policies to be at par with them. So while entrepreneurs are learning corporate governance, while entrepreneurs are learning clean books of accounts, while entrepreneurs and their teams are learning, so is the government, so is policies. So I think we're in that, if you look at the last I've been in the startup space for about 10 years, from 2014. So let's say the startup boom started in 2010, 2012. If we're only a 15-year-old, serious, startup-obsessed country, but we want policies like the US, which has been startup-obsessed for much longer, have had listed entities for much longer. So I think there's an important balance to kind of get in perspective from both, right? कि अपना aspiration है, but at the same time हम छोटे बच्चे भी हैं. So it's like, you want to grow up when you're young, but you're not ready. We're classic, I think we're there. In terms of financing, look, we are going to be a consumption-driven economy. It is going to be the state for a while. What we truly believe is we're also an aspirational economy. You have younger folks coming in with connectivity, like we were just discussing earlier, who are seeing what the world has to offer, want to get it immediately. So financing becomes a double-edged sword. You don't want money to be so easily accessible that everyone can hit a button and buy whatever they want and then not repay it and jeopardize their future. At the same time, folks who know how to handle it or even have to learn how to handle it, it's important we teach them in the right manner. Give them limited amount of money, make sure they're able to repay, then increase it a little bit, right? So at Axio, one of our core mantras is making credit available for people, but making credit available for the deserving people. And you have to create deserving people. No one knows how to handle money on day one. Sab seekhte hain. So the idea is to kind of keep that journey going.
Certainly. Thanks, Akshay. Naveen, my question to you is, adding to what Akshay said, giving credit to the deserving people, what are the financial strategies that you think of these SMEs, MSMEs, or the small companies should follow maybe to raise capital, to enhance capital, specifically on the non-metros and the emerging Bharat?
Yeah, so very valid question. So in the startup space, and I would like to talk about the startup space, there are certain things which the organizations needs to do to make sure that the access to the capital is relatively easier, right? So first and foremost, it comes to my mind is the robust financial modeling, right? In more often than not cases, organizations at that stage doesn't have too much of focus on the financial modeling part. The focus is largely driven on the business, how to grow business, probably how to grow valuations and all of that. Probably the organizations lack that part, which in my view is the fundamental, because if you don't have the financial modeling, you would never be able to project what's your runway, what's your requirements, and accordingly your access to capital in a way becomes jeopardized, right? So that's the first and the foremost essential. The second thing is to create a financial infrastructure and create governance around it, right? So once you, let's say, once you do budgeting, once you have the financial modeling and once you do budgeting, you have to have a process wherein the budgets are being adhered to, and if there is any variance in the budgets, the analysis is being done to make sure that we are not losing off track, right? So you have to have a financial infrastructure, you have to have a governance around the financial infrastructure. The third thing is we have to diversify the sources of funds, right? So not necessarily the venture capitalist, you have to make sure that, the element of debt is there, the element of, non-dilutive capital is there, like crowdfunding and so on and so forth. So these are certain things which, as a CFO, the organizations like us need to make sure that we have all of these in place so that the access to capital becomes relatively easier and there are modes and aviations available for us to raise the capital required.
Okay, yeah, that is meaningful. I mean, let me come to you, Sachin. I think consumption story is the talk of the town. Even, the panelists also partly spoke about it. And if you look at every lending company or economist talking and betting really high on the consumption story, but it has many layers where the young people are borrowing even for going on a wedding and buying a new dress for it. So that's a very different story. But in your way, thoughts, how real is this consumption story? And, whether the MSMEs, SMEs are actually borrowing for a sustainable businesses in the Bharat? How do you see that?
Yeah. So consumption story, I'll just talk about my sector. Consumption story has been so far decent, where we see trend improving, and but we really have to see actually what is driving this consumption. So that consumption maybe question is whether it is a sustainable consumption or not. That's the biggest question. So it may, last year was not that great in terms of consumption, if I say. This year is improving, but then are we able to sustain this consumption? That's the biggest challenge for us. And MSME, they are the backbone. And I sincerely believe that this Bharat story, if it really, and I'm sure it will really perform, it will really grow in the next decade, and that will change the entire consumption scenario. That's my belief.
Sure, Sachin, we'll come back to you. But Ketan, now let me come back to you. Broadly we discussed the pain points and then we discussed the funding and the consumer story. But I'm sure you will have a better experience because you're dealing with a lot of people from smaller towns. What kind of aspiration do you see with those businesses, and how far will they go in your observations, Ketan?
As regards to aspirations, I think the Bharat or rural, let me be brutally honest out here, their aspirations are far more than what people across the urbans and metros are. And that is evidence in all, so we take a measured approach, or maybe we are spoiled for choices, but the demographic and the right demographic for Bharat is leaving us with all a real aspiration story coming to. I think someone just said, maybe Akshay or Naveen, our success as a country will essentially lie that how the policymakers, the regulators, and the India supports Bharat to convert those aspirations into a sustainable momentum. I think the fallacies, or I may not say fallacies, but when an aspiration of a small town, there is no limit to it. So how well balanced we can, and the support which they are essentially getting will decide. And I agree with what Sachin just said, and maybe I'm repeating this off, is that our consumption story, because of the reason which I've just said, is going to continue. How well we balance it off and how well infrastructure we give them is a real way forward in my view for India growth or Bharat growth.
Okay, sure. Sanchal, from your experience, you highlighted the pain points, some time back. Do you think that SMEs, MSMEs, and the companies that we're talking about have a global competitive, or they are very competitive in terms of when they come to the market, or they will still be below the average level?
In my view, all the SME or the small companies, they are now most of the company they are globally they are doing, and they are trying their best. Earlier days, what we have seen is that maybe 1, 2, 3 customers was there, and they are dealing with those customers only. But they have expanded this, and if you see today, for any small business, they are doing business globally, and they are getting a good response. So that's the
Okay. So, Akshay, you spoke about the finance part, but there has been new finance models which has emerged. Whether it's P2P, whether it's crowdfunding and everything. Do you think it is helping, MSMEs and SMEs in some way? Because the biggest challenge that everybody says, if it's not living in perhaps in Mumbai, Pune, Nagpur, was how to access the capital. So do you think these new models are actually helping them raise finance?
Look, I think when these models started out west, I think it was like 2012, 2014, right? You had the lending clubs of the world that kind of came to say, how do we finance businesses? India also went through that journey, I think, between 2014 and 2018 till IL&FS happened, and then a whole bunch of, knock-on macro events kind of just took place one after the other. I think access to capital globally for MSMEs, I'm just going to step back and not just look at India, is a problem. You go to any conference in the US, it's the same thing, that MSMEs are the backbone, but unka kamar toota hua hai. It is literally the same thing everywhere in the world, because these businesses, unfortunately or fortunately, do not have the kind of stability that you see in a Fortune 500 company. You don't see what Tata has in cash flow stability is not there here. So underwriting them for banks becomes that much harder. In a country like India, it's even harder because security kuch khas hota hai nahi. Unsecured bets, we don't like. but we want yields like unsecured lending because that's what the investors want. So it's a very complicated system that we always try to navigate. Now, crowdfunding, P2P platforms, when they all came about, and I think the regulator gave them enough space to breathe to see what was happening, then realized there's potentially more abuse, misuse happening than what should happen. Then they came in with regulation. Now at Axio, or we earlier called Capital Float, we used to do co-lending. We started this in 2015, which was how do you get a bank to partner with me to lend to folks they would normally not lend to because risk appetite nahi hai unka. So we said, okay, I will give you a loss cover of X%. And we always started with 5. And we said, okay, you come and lend with me, see the performance for a while, and then tell me if this is a segment you will be willing to enter. Now that has actually played out very well in the long run. Unfortunately, it takes time. It is not possible that in the first year, anyone will disburse 10,000 crores and see कि चलो देखते हैं क्या होगा इसका, right? So you will grow slowly, you will see cycles, you have to see how borrowers are behaving, and then people get confident that, hey, I can actually lend in this space. So I think all the models that are there, unfortunately, new models, but how to underwrite and how you look at a borrower has not changed, and I don't expect that to change. So till businesses start small and grow to that medium stage and then hopefully big, access to capital is something that they will have to earn through repeated performances, for which you will need stability, which comes and goes depending on the events that are happening. So it is a very complicated journey. I don't think a single straightforward answer kind of gets there.
Sure. And in fact, I always say this, that, anybody who wants to look at microfinance, every new company, new lender comes and says that we are going to be very aggressive on microfinance. I think the first story we should look at is SKS Microfinance. They were also as aggressive as that. But yeah, thanks. I will come back to you. But Naveen, let me learn from you. You tell us what worked for you. I mean, you are a decent company now. There are a lot of aspirations which the MSMEs and SMEs also have for the companies like you. So what actually worked for you? How did you reach to the level where you are today?
It's a difficult question to answer. I can't reveal some of the strategies which we have. But yeah, some of the things like typical startup functionality, which is agility, right? We are far more agile than many matured organizations in the country, right? And that's where I think we play to our strengths, right? So if we see in the market that, we need to change some business model, we need to change maybe some product, we need to change maybe some product packaging, our turnaround time to react to the requirements of the market is really, really very fast. And that's the entire ecosystem in which the entire organization works like that. So there's a very well-defined mindset in each and every employee of the organization, be it at the front end of the sales team or be it at the back end, back in the head office. Everyone is working towards the agenda that my response to the market has to be super fast, and in a way that it caters to the requirement, in a way that it fulfills the objective of the response which is coming from the market. So that's, I think, the single biggest differentiator when it comes to the startup organization like ours. Second thing is, I think, what we did very differently was our consistent focus on not just improving the top line, which many startups do, but also improving the bottom line. And that's where I think we are slightly differentiated from many other organizations in the same eco space, because the focus is not just on top line, but to bring a more profitable top line, if I can use that word. So that again becomes a very key differentiator. It places us very uniquely in the entire startup ecosystem, because again, the entire organization is looking into this. I jokingly tell, so I joined Sugar a couple of months back, and when I was doing my onboarding, everyone was talking about bottom line. So I said to my founders that as a CFO, I mean, I'm the most happiest person in the organization, because I don't have to convince people that you have to look into bottom line. In fact, people are telling me that, you know what, we have to focus on bottom line. So that's the second thing, which again was a key differentiator and which makes us where we are. So these are a couple of things which are there.
So, Sachin, give us some sense on the expansion, because you are exporting and, dealing with so many other organizations also. So how should, these companies, whether it's SMA, SME, MSME, SME, or these mid-sized companies, expand? What worked for you? Should they do everything in one go, or go step by step? What could be the right suggestion according to you?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think the way we have expanded is, we had access to new markets. We have invested in growing that market, and we had the financial strength. We also have developed a very compliant, compliance was very strong, because when you export, then you come under ambit of lot of compliances. There's FEMA compliances, EDPMS compliances. So those has to be, so two things. One is access to market, at the same time compliance framework, at the same time payment mechanism, because when we export and there are digital payments like PayPal and all, from where the money comes and is very secure. So now coming to MSMEs, they can't grow at one go. They have to take step by step, they have to grow, and it's very important for them that they have very strong, they have access to the new market, where CFOs can play a great role by leveraging their network and giving market insights. At the same time, they have to have a very robust compliance framework for the export, because export has got a lot of compliances. So these are two things where which needs to be done before they go and access new markets.
I mean, my next question was actually about access to market. Thanks for adding that. What I will do is I will shoot my next question to Ketan, and if you have any questions, be ready with that. Maybe I will come to you. Yeah, just wait. So Ketan, the biggest challenge apart from the funding, access to market and everything, is being cost effective. I mean, that's a dream of every CFO, to become cost effective. Any suggestions that you have in terms of how those CFOs can be very cost effective and be very competitive in terms of the market?
Yeah, Amol, amongst all of us out here, I'm the one who runs a listed entity, so we've raised capital. I think when you say cost effective, which I presume you're saying that the operational efficiency of scales. Before I go that, I think since he linked the two questions, I said, and for my fellow panelists and maybe anyone who's listening, when you raise capital by any means, assign a cost of capital in your mind as management. The moment that assigning of cost of capital happens, the role of a CFO becomes simple. You are looking at every aspect. You're not looking at profit at 100. You will say that 100, 1,000 ke, pay 100 aaya hai, so there is a cost of capital. So that is the beginning of mindset which the CFO needs to drive. Now I'll go to the cost effectiveness, and I can give some of the examples which we've done. We've operated through, somewhere around 20 lakhs points in terms of the 70% or 80% of those are through the Bharat. It is very difficult. One of the things, and I'm not here saying as a CFO, but generally for, this thing, we are averse to invest into technology as much because of the bottom line, and I am no different. All the people out here, my thought out here, and we have demonstrated it as well, that a right mindset of digital and technology investment, it may not be simple. Whilst as SMEs and small companies and mid companies, there is an element of agility, that fine balance which we are doing, we don't invest enough. So one very, very big point which I'm saying is invest in technology. It will, and it can have facets of operations, it can have facets all across, and in digital in our case, and maybe the case of Akshay as well, or maybe some other cases digital. If we do that, there will be a time frame of lag, for a couple of quarters, or in certain cases a year as well. But operational efficiencies, economies of scale, the way we are going, and the consumption-led story and the volume-led story which we are saying is, there is no other effective way other than technology and digitization, which we have to do that. Thanks, Amol.
Okay. Sure, I think a lot to learn specifically when these companies needs to reach to a different level and build economics of the scale. I will take a pause here. Anybody has a question here? Yes, can we have a mic there on the first table?
Yeah, hi. So I don't have a question, but just to add some of the points. So what has happened in last few years for MSME and SME promoters, they have taken money from bank.
Yes.
Now they want to grow. Suppose a SME promoter whose top line is say 200 crore, they are earning good amount, say 20, 30 crore, and they have over a period of time they have created net worth of say 100, 200 crores. Example. Now they want to grow from this level. They have been growing 15% CAGR, but they are not satisfied. They want to do say from 200 crore to 700 crores. Example. So what they have done in last 15, 20 years, they have gone and get into the infra projects. Example. So that the infra is such a thing where you get 500 crore projects and put money into that. And they don't have experience, they can't hire the expensive people, and they lost money there. So the account has become NPA. That is one part of the story. Second part of the story, since...
We got your point, but do you have any questions specifically?
No, I don't have any
Because the time
questions.
Then we'll give the opportunity to someone else maybe.
Thank you.
Yeah, can we have a question there, please? You have a question, my friend? Yeah, please. Yeah, please stand up, I think. Can we have a mic there? Yeah.
Yeah, my question is specifically in context of startups, right?
Yes.
So inherently the startup founders, they are eternally optimists, right?
Yes.
And the role of the finance guy is also to exercise professional skepticism, right? So how do you know, maybe Naveen, Ketan, if you can help, how do you balance the both?
I would actually challenge that notion. Why do you think the finance professional has to be skeptical? Because if inherently I'm a skeptic, I will never join a startup, right? So I think it's very important. And these are things like every time I go to speak, I hear that statement or I hear finance is like the brake of a car. No. It's not your job to be skeptic. It's your job to plan for that optimism to become a reality. It's your job to highlight where potential speed breakers or potholes might come. It's your job to be the fuel in the car to make sure every piece of the car is functioning in the right manner. So I think one of the biggest problems I see in India, and maybe because I'm not a chartered accountant, I come with a very different view and a perspective to it. Don't be a skeptic. Just because you're a finance head doesn't mean you have to say no first. पहले समझ लो, ना तो कभी भी बोल सकते हो. So it's very, very important that I think that mindset kind of goes and you work. Because what are you going to be a CFO of a skeptic organization that isn't growing and is like lagaarding somewhere? Like, kiska kya bhala ho raha hai, right? It's kind of pointless beyond a point. So number one, I think when you're working with founders, it's very important to understand, their personality. And I've worked with the same set of founders for a decade now. So you have to understand them. You have to understand what drives them, what they're trying to solve, and how to kind of earn their trust over time that when you come with a perspective, you get it, right? So I think the idea is to be skeptical, but the idea is to plan very well. And I think one of the points that Naveen kind of highlighted very well was financial planning, financial modeling, tracking that plan to reality. Every month, just the founders and me sit down and review the last 6-month variances without anybody else in the room. Then have piecemeal chats with everyone going like, that went off, this went very well, what did you do? Can we replicate it somewhere else? So a little bit of the boring work, not necessarily all the fun, beautiful looking things, but good old grunt work is needed with the founders for us to build the kind of companies that this country, I think, badly needs.
Great.
Yeah, I can just add to what he said, and I completely agree, Akshay, what you said. So in many cases, you are right that founders are optimistic, but we as the finance leaders or the CFOs at times have to show them the mirror as well, right? And the mirror should or cannot be that, hey, you know what, you are doing something wrong. But the mirror can also be that, hey, you know what, yes, the aspiration is right. Probably the path to reach that aspiration is slightly different than what you think of. And you have to have that courage. You have to have that guts to say that this is where I think, in my opinion, the organization should walk the path, right? So that's where the role of the CFO becomes far more important. On a lighter note, actually, these conversations happens when the entire organization is out, right? So you are sitting with the founders, no one else in the organization, and then you can have that talk very freely. So you create that rapport. Once you prove that, yes, what you are saying makes sense, then you create that rapport. And I have been told, and I have been experiencing this for the last few months, that they actually look on to you to make certain critical decisions.
Right.
So
Just
the role of the CFO becomes far more important.
It takes the founders as well. It can't just be the CFO saying, मैं जाके सच बोलूँगा. सामने वाले को सच सुनना भी है, which is very important. Not a lot of founders in this country are open to criticism even behind closed doors, least in public. So I think it takes a lot for them to because they've started a company with a vision, right? So when you come and challenge them, so it takes a lot to tango, and it takes a bunch of people coming together to build it well.
Amol, sorry.
Yeah, sure.
I'll just take 30 seconds, which is partly in alignment with Naveen and Akshay, but partly different. And I'll give an example. And we've been growing for last 5-7 years at 25% CAGR listed, etc. One thing which we've agreed, and I've been with the bank largely since the beginning of the bank. Between me and the CEO, we will always complete our circle, and we will always differ. Now, this is the most important thing, that both of us have that respect for each other, where we can speak anything under the sun. There are times when they go slow and, I will go fast. And again, as CFO, I'm saying that as well, that because I'm seeing it off, when they are going fast, I will, try to balance the wheel, and very consciously. It's easier said than done. Perhaps I'm saying it so confidently after 8 years of reasonable successful journey, but that is an important aspect, and alignment and openness, and it does work. Maybe we don't call it skepticism. Akshay really got rightfully excited because of skepticism, but the balancing is a better word. And both sides, aggression and balancing.
Sure. So I think
I'll just add to this. While I've been working with founders since last decade, I think that while we align to their vision, that's very important. But at the same time, as Naveen said, we have to show the mirror. If any risk is there, we should be upfront to the founder and tell them, because they will appreciate that if you come and tell them the risk. The problem is when you don't tell the risk and just go, be goody-goody with your founders. Always be upfront with the risk.
Oh, sure. So I think the time is limited, so I will take one common question with all of you. Quick, maybe 30-40 seconds if you can just take. Aspiration is there, a lot of positivity is there, promising is there. I mean, so many MSME startups are coming into the market every day. We discussed the fundraise. But, we still yet to produce a very, very strong company, right? I mean, which America produced something like Apple, we have NVIDIA. Even we have a lot of traditional companies, but on the market cap, we can't even match them. They are as big as, India's economy. If you look at the startup space, or maybe the SME space, what do you think are those 1 or 2 points which will create the economies of scale, create the best market, and make the best marketplace for these startups or the fintechs or the SMEs, MSMEs going ahead maybe in 5-10 years? Yeah.
I'll actually answer in one word, is perseverance. I think that is very, very important. We, as small companies, get excited about, the next level quite fast. And in certain cases, you said that, the big market cap doesn't come because they are absorbed or they're acquired by someone. I think if there is an element of perseverance, there is no reason over the next 15 years, which is going to belong to Bharat, we can have a really big company coming on.
In my view, it's that one is that strategy that's very important, and second is that operational efficiency. So these two things are very important. At the same time, how to capture the market, particularly the new market, etc. And the founder or the CEO, he has to be very passionate, and this consistent effort is required.
Okay, Akshay.
I think there are a few things. I think why are you building a company is important. You should chase value creation than valuation. If you're chasing valuation, your aspiration will tap out at some point when you see potentially what your bank balance can be. I think the other thing that drives is corporate governance. I think the biggest delta India has lacked, even recently compared to the out west, is how we look at corporate governance and the misuse, whatever stuff that follows, right? So the ability to actually run a company cleanly, well, without diverting money here and there is very critical for this country to actually build a serious company. And when you compare to stuff like NVIDIA and all, I don't think enough investments in R&D goes. Like when you look at deep tech or serious technology innovation, capital towards R&D is so scarce. In fact, you will have a higher tax rebate on donations to religious institutions than you will to some at times when it comes to serious R&D for science. And I think it's important that money goes there, because without that R&D, you are never going to build an NVIDIA. You will build services companies. Services companies are not going to have market caps of an NVIDIA, right? So till money is channeled in those departments, along with a bunch of other things, I think you're always going to struggle to kind of match that.
Meaningful.
I agree with all of you. The only thing which comes apart from what my co-panelists have said is the entire mindset of the founders to look for an exit. I mean, that's the biggest roadblock. I have seen many cases, and in the last few years, I have been talking to a lot of founders in this space. A lot of founders have the aspiration to create a value up to a level and then look for an exit. And that, I think that's the biggest hindrance for our ecosystem to create organizations like Apple, as you mentioned, right? So I think that's the biggest thing which comes to my mind. Second thing which Akshay rightly mentioned is the entire focus on compliance. I think that's the most neglected part in the entire ecosystem if I talk about the startup environment, right? You would not find many organizations giving due focus on compliance, which actually becomes a bigger hindrance as you grow bigger. So these are two things which instantaneously comes to my mind.
Well, my fellow members have covered most of the points. I also agree that investment in R&D is key. And then one of the things which I feel is digitization is key. It's very important that we digitize our processes. We use the best technologies with keeping in mind the ROI. So the CFOs have to play a very big role here while adopting to digitization, because a lot of tools are available. But it is we, the finance people, who can be evaluated in terms of ROI, which is the best tool suited for my business needs. That is most important. I think with that investment in R&D, that will take the MSME to a larger scale.
Fantastic. I think those are remarkable thoughts and very, very meaningful. In fact, somebody also made a comment in the morning that R&D, we don't look at it. In fact, most of the global companies spend almost like 4 to 5% of their budget on the R&Ds. Here, even health and pharma companies also, are reluctant to spend that much, which is an integral part of the whole world, the health world. But thank you so much, for sharing those thoughts, Ketan, Chanchal, Akshay, Naveen, and Sachin, for those remarkable thoughts. And thank you so much for being with us and listening to us. Thank you. Thank you.